Hey, what's up guys? My name's Brett, and this is my video on drum editing in Pro Tools. Pretty much, I just didn't think there was a lot of good content out there on YouTube for this sort of thing. This is kind of what I think the top level guys are doing for that larger than life kind of rock drum sound. And basically, there's going to be like three main parts to this. The first one's going to have to do with phase alignment with Sound Radix AutoAlign. The second part's going to deal with time alignment with Beat Detective, and then the third part's going to be creating triggers with Massey DRT. So I will say this is a pretty Pro Tools focused thing. You know, both Beat Detective and Massey DRT are Pro Tools only. So that's kind of why I think a lot of people who are dealing with real drums are using Pro Tools. So it's one thing to be aware of when you're watching this video. So here we have some drums that we recorded at a studio here in town. So I'll play a little bit for you. First thing I want to do is I make all these drum tracks yellow. That's just always what I do. So I'm going to go Alt-Shift, and I'm going to change the output of every one of these tracks. I'm going to click New Track. I always call this All Drums. So you don't have to do this. This is just something I like to do. And then I'm going to right-click, Convert to a routing folder. And then I'm going to highlight all these. Also, one thing we need to do, we need to make a group real quick. So I'm going to call this Drums. That's going to be real important when we're time aligning because we want all these mics moving together, right? This will be really important. So I'm going to drag all these into the routing folder. That way it's just organized. If I want to hide it all, once I bring this into the other session, it's just easier to kind of maneuver. Another thing to notice is now that they're all grouped, if we solo, it affects all of them. If it mutes, it's muting all of them. As I mentioned before, the first thing we kind of want to deal with is the fixing the phase alignment, right? So in this room, it's not perfect. We kind of just throw mics up. So there's definitely some phase problems. So we want to go to overhead left here, plug in Sound Radix AutoAlign. We want to send to 1. And then we just want to set the input here. Something around there. Now on the overhead right, we could do kind of the same thing, but we want to receive 1. Once that's set up, we can hit this button, press play. So basically what it's doing is it's adjusting this overhead right 44 samples so that it's in phase with the left one. So we're going to pretty much keep doing this process. One thing I want to do though is I want to commit the way it sounds right now. That way we can kind of compare because you don't want to do all this work and it sound worse, right? So I'm going to do this no AutoAlign. Right. So next, let's do kick in. So we're going to set it to receive 1. Same thing, hit detect, press play. Okay. So right there, it's moving at 74 samples, right? And I can already hear like a big low end bump when I take it off. Yeah, a lot of low end coming back on that kick. Snare, we're gonna receive 1. Okay, 152 samples. We do everything and then we could kind of pick and choose. Receive 1 for the tom 1. Alright, 95 samples. floor tom. Receive 1. Okay, 70 samples. Next, we're going to do the kick out and snare bottom. These are a little different because we're going to do the kick out to the kick in. So we go kick in, we send a 2, kick out, receive 2, hit the text. Okay, snare bottom. So similar thing, we're going to send the snare top to 3. We're going to send the snare, we're going to receive snare bottom 3. Okay, now we're gonna talk a little bit about the rooms. A lot of guys online will say not to mess with the rooms, not to get them phase aligned. Pretty much it will really dramatically move these room mics over, right? Because they're so much farther away. To my ears, it kind of seems like you get more punchiness if you have your rooms really phase tight with your close mics. But you do kind of sacrifice some depth. So we can do them, and then we can kind of listen and see which way we like better. But so I'll just receive from overhead left. So as you can see, this is like our far mic. So it's moving at 505 samples. So that's quite a bit. Do the other room mic. This is the closer one. 225. So let's compare real quick to the one I had before. Okay, so that one has no AutoAlign. Let's hear with the AutoAlign on. Hopefully you can hear. It's pretty obvious that there's a lot more punch, a lot more low end, with the AutoAlign version. But let's listen one more time. Sounds like thin, papery without the AutoAlign. It really sounds like I added like a bunch of EQ. So this is just kind of the power of phase, That's why I think, these kinds of things are real important. Let's see how it sounds. Let's see without these room mics. See if... So yeah, with AutoAlign on, it's just kind of in your face, and when I take them off, they're kind of farther back. So I think I'm going to keep this far one kind of for depth, and I'll put this one, kind of phase aligned with everything else. So that's pretty much the section on AutoAlign that I want to talk about. Next, we're going to be jumping into using Beat Detective. Kind of before I go into Beat Detective, maybe we'll talk a little bit about editing by hand. So what you could do is, that looks pretty on. You can see here, we're not really on the grid, right? So we could do something like that. We could do these kinds of moves to manually get everything in the right place so that everything sounds nice and, in time, basically. But hopefully you can see this could take, a lot of work. We'd have to go in and do all these fades. So a faster way would be to use Beat Detective. I think it sounds the same, and it's just way faster. So we're going to use Beat Detective. So what I'm going to do, I like to break it up into chunks. So we're going to go up to this first verse here. Have it kind of put some markers there already. So we'll go to Event, Beat Detective. Okay, so here we go. First things first, I want to take this group off real quick. Because we want to, basically we want to create markers everywhere there's a kick and everywhere there's a snare. That's kind of, you could do the toms too, I just usually do those by hand since there's usually less toms. So we highlight the section kick we want to do. I'm on clip separation. We hit analyze, sub beats here, and we play with the sensitivity. Let's just zoom in here. So you can see that it's not grabbing this kick right here, so we might need to, there we go. You can see these things it's not picking up, these are actually snares. So it's fine, we're getting all the kicks here. And we're getting all the kicks here. Yeah. This one actually, I don't think this is a kick. So what you could do, you could alt click. You can also make markers. You double click and make a marker. This is kind of finicky. So once we got all those kicks, we can go to collection. We go to add unique, and you see they all pop up. Let's go back to normal. So next we're going to highlight our snare section and hit analyze. And right off the bat, looks like it's got all the snares. So yeah, looks good. So okay, we say go to collection, go to add unique. So now it has combined to where the kicks and snares, there's a beat marker everywhere that there would be a kick and snare. Okay, so what we could do, we can click on the drum group and we could highlight all this. And there we go. That's where we're going to make our cuts. So it's going to cut directly on the transient, which, you know, might not be what you want, especially if, you know, you haven't gone in and really messed with these to make sure they're perfect. You know, it's not going to be perfect. So what I like to do is set this trigger pad to like 15. Okay, and now we can click separate. And let's zoom in here, see what's going on. So actually, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it seems like this trigger pad is not working. So I'm just going to separate it again. Let's see if that, yeah, so now you can see that basically this is where our beat marker is. It's making a cut right there, right? 15 milliseconds before. So that's what we want. Okay, now what it's going to do, let me move this real quick. So we have these beat markers everywhere there's a transient, right? Everywhere there's a kick and snare. We want to go to clip conform. This is basically going to put it on the grid, right? We can pick how much we want to put it on the grid. So let's just do 100. I think 100's cool. So I've seen some guys do like 80 or 90. So we hit conform. Okay. Everything should be on the grid, yeah. To the nearest 16th note, since that's what was specified here. So let's play it back and see how it sounds. I'm going to turn the click up a little bit so we can see where we're at in time. Okay, so hopefully you can hear that everything is now pretty much in time. The only problems we're getting is that it sounds choppy now, like right here, right? So what we could do to fix that is you go to Edit Smoothing, Fill Gaps and Crossfade. 5 milliseconds, probably fine. Press Smooth. Okay, so now it has gotten rid of everything, all the gaps, right? And put a bunch of fades. So one thing you could do now is, let's say something messed up, like this was over here, right? You could just put it, you know, where it belongs, right? So you can manually edit after you do this, which is kind of the advantage, right? Of other than doing it manually, you can get mostly everything in the right place, and then if you need to fine-tune detail stuff, right, you can do that. So let's listen to it now, see if there's anything weird. So one thing, like these toms, right, like I think I mentioned, like I didn't mess with these toms. So what you could do, I could tab to transient the toms, right? I could do that. I could do this. I could just manually, I can't move my mouse. Right, something like that. So now that these toms are in the right place, and then let's see how that sounds. Like one of these snares sounded late, you know? Like this one sounds late, and you can even see like it doesn't look right. It's because it's grabbing, see, he's hitting the kick snare at the same time. So I'd rather have the snare here on time, right? Because it just sounds a little weird. So you can manually do that, right? So you just go like this, listen, listen for weird stuff. You also notice there's these green little things here. So it's actually doing some time stretching too. You could do manual time stretching if you have to, right? Up here with this. If you needed something to stretch out farther. It won't let me do it, but yeah. So yeah, let me listen to this one section real quick, and then we'll do the next section. Cool. Yeah, it sounds good. So now we can do this next section. So what we got to do, let's go back to clip separation. Also, I'm going to save real quick. Save. Okay. Let's go to collection. We need to clear the triggers, right, that we had. Okay, so let's grab, we need to deselect the group. I want to just grab the kicks. I want to analyze. And it looks like it's got all of them, maybe except this first one. Yeah, so yeah, it's not getting. So see what I did? That was a bad thing. You wanna move the drums all at once, right? So let's see if I can get this one in the right place. Sometimes these things are weird. I might just have to settle for, okay, actually, looks like that's good. And this should not be there. And the rest look good. Okay. So we're going to go to collection, add unique, go back to normal. Let's analyze these snare top. See how it's getting too many here, right? These aren't snares. It's grabbing, I don't know why it's doing that. So just lower the sensitivity. And that looks good. Yeah. So collection, add unique. Okay, so now we got the kicks and the snares. Beat markers is what they're called. So let's click on the group. And we're going to go to, we need to separate. Let's zoom in, make sure it's, yep, there's our 15 millisecond pad. So that's good. So now we are going to, same thing as last time, clip conform. Yep, that's fine. Oh no, that's not good. I think what's happening is it's trying to conform it to the first selection. So I think I need a recapture selection. Now I'll do conform. There we go. So let's listen to it now. It should sound choppy, but hopefully everything should be in the right place. Okay, so everything sounds good. There's just, yeah, choppiness. So hopefully this will get rid of all of that. Let's take a listen, make sure it sounds fine. But yeah, so that seems good. Sounds good to me. One thing we might need to do is this gap between the chunks, right? It's kind of weird. So we might just need to crossfade that. So hopefully you guys get the procedure for this. You know, the more you work with Beat Detective, the easier it'll get. A lot easier than doing it manually. So hopefully you guys get the gist of how to do that. I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of the song real quick, just section by section, and then we'll go ahead and go over the DRT triggers part of this. All right, real quick, I was in the middle of doing this, and I ran to kind of another troubleshooting thing. When I click separate, it says must not contain crossfades. So sometimes when it says that, you could go to edit fades, just delete whatever's there, and then you should be good to go. Alright, so I went through and I got the whole song time aligned with Beat Detective, so you can see it's all there. So one thing you might want to do now, you don't have to, you could just commit all these if you want, and then it'll at least look a little cleaner. So I can hide and make inactive. So we'll just do that real quick. So now everything's committed, right? Everything's on the grid, time aligned using Beat Detective. Okay, so now we're gonna do the third part of the video, which is creating triggers with Massey DRT. Yeah, I just think it's the best, easiest way to do it nowadays. But it is only available for Pro Tools. So first thing, let's start with the snare. I'm going to duplicate snare top. Just duplicate everything. I'm going to call this snare DRT. And we're going to go to Audio Suites, Massey Plugins, Massey DRT. And what we're going to do is we're going to analyze this top one here. And then we're going to kind of look around. You have a, well, okay, first things first. We need to grab like this snare. Or this one. This one looks pretty good. So we go to learn. Press learn. Alright, it's going to look at kind of the transient, how the snare looks, and it's going to use this to identify the other snares in this track, right? So we go back to timeline, and let's just grab a section like here. And we got sensitivity slider here, kind of like with the Beat Detective. And then I like kind of the velocity to be kind of the same on these, because I'm going to use it for gates and for like consistent samples and stuff. So let's change that. Let's see here. That looks good. Looks good. Doesn't look like we're mistriggering a whole lot, except for here, I see something. And this is like really the first pass, so I go pretty quick on this one, and then we'll get more nitty gritty. See, here's a miss sample. Is that a snare? Yeah, I can't tell. I don't think that is a snare. I think that's a kick right there. So I'll take that off. Alright, there's something here. There's like a triplet something. So yeah, it's fine. So here's a miss trigger. Yeah, it's grabbing this thing. That's not a snare. And I don't think this last thing's a snare either. Yeah, it's a tom. Okay. So now we went through pretty good. Got all the DRT triggers. So we're going to hit render on our DRT track here. Okay. So now it's created this little, I'll play it for you. It's just a little trigger here. Everywhere there's a snare, right? So now we can go through and kind of double check everything. Basically, you could just keep rendering this to kind of keep updating it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to tab through this DRT track and make sure that all of these DRT triggers are in the right place. So I'm just going to tab through real quick. There was something like this was real small. Yeah, see, this was a miss trigger that I missed, right? So take that off. As you can see, it's putting them in a really good place. Let me see this one. This one actually should probably be moved here. Okay. Tabbing through. Going pretty fast. That's fine. This one's way off, so do that. This looks like that looks like a kick. I don't know why it's grabbing that. Take that out. And yeah, when you do two in a row, it's kind of hard. This one looks like it might be here. Okay. So now what we're going to do, we're going to highlight the DRT track. Now that we've changed kind of some stuff in here, hit render again. Should see change a little bit. Okay, next thing you want to do, I want to make a new track, new stereo track, MIDI. We can name it snare MIDI. Bothers me that it's purple. Make it yellow. And what we could do here is we could do the MIDI drag and drop. Let me grab this. MIDI drag and drop. And there we go. So now we have an audio trigger here, and we have a MIDI trigger here. Pretty much at this point, what we want to do is we want to set a gate with this trigger. So I usually just send it bus 1. And then for our snare top, we could do our Fab Filter Pro G. We could put our key as bus 1. I think we can rename this. So snare DRT. Snare DRT. Go to this expert here and we change the sidechain to external. So now we can kind of control this snare top, you know, how long we want it to go. There we go. So make this pre-fader. That should work. Right, so if we do this, there's a lot of sustain, right? So for this top mic, probably somewhere around here would be good. And then we can turn this, let's bypass this. You can see there's just a lot more noise with this on. So then we can also put this on the bottom mic, right? And now we have much cleaner direct hits that we've got a lot of control over. with our DRT trigger and our Pro G here. So another cool thing we can do is, I got this MIDI set up. We could do something like, do contact, and we could do like the GGD or something like that. So I got modern and massive here, and you might just have to. So right now, this is supposed to be a snare. It's triggering a kick, so I have to probably put it on, yeah, this D0 here for the kick. So let me get rid of this. Right, and you could change the snare. Right, and so as long as we were careful about our DRT, we should have super phase tight samples that we can kind of blend in. And also, let me put this to the all drums. All right. Right, so we can add samples, and we don't have to do it MIDI, right? We could trigger from here. We can use something like trigger 2, mono stereo, and we could grab, something. Let me see. I'm not sure. Like this one. This one is we took in that room. Pretty much just whatever samples you want to use, right? You can put these in. Trigger 2 snares. Let's see what's going on. Kind of room sound. You could trigger room sounds. That might be cool. And then let's see. We'll go to triggering. Right, so something like that, that could be really cool. And then, I don't know, maybe we could blend it with the GGD one we had too. Let's see. Yeah, so it's just giving us a lot more sustain, a lot more of the room sound when you add a sample. So I'm going to do the same thing for the kicks, and then I'll kind of show again the same kind of process. Okay, so I finished with the kicks here. So I've got the kick DRT, I got the kick MIDI. So again, I'm going to do bus 2 here. I'm going to rename this kick DRT, and we're gonna do, I'm just hitting alt click, we'll do pre-fader. Alright, so I was setting up this gate here, so let me do fab filter, and this, you don't have to use this gate, obviously. You can use the stock Pro Tools one. I just like using this one. Okay, so similar thing over here on the kick out. Yeah, so let's try triggering. Let's go back to the GGD. You just got a lot of options with Massey DRT, right? Because you can trigger with battery, you can trigger with contact, or you can do, right, like I said, with slate trigger. So it's cool that there's an option for MIDI or for, yeah, just audio. That's one of the things I really like about it. These are a little heavy-handed right now. I really like the sample just for kind of reinforcement, right? So yeah, once you're at this point, you can kind of focus more on mixing, focus more on blending your samples, and now, double checking all your triggers, all your DRT triggers. And yeah, hopefully this helps some of you guys with drum editing. Yeah, thanks so much for watching.